I know you're sitting in that car feeling like your entire inner world is spilling out in fragments, trying so desperately to make another human understand what it feels like to be inside your mind, your body, your nervous system. I know how exhausted you are from trying to explain yourself in every direction possible, just so someone won't reduce you to a mere label the second your pain becomes inconvenient to witness or uncomfortable. And first, I need you to hear this clearly. You were never crazy for wanting to be understood. You were never crazy for wanting safety. You were never crazy for wanting people to listen before reacting. You were never crazy for feeling so deeply. You were never crazy for trying to make sense of suffering while actively inside of it all. But you were overwhelmed. Your nervous system was overwhelmed. Your heart was overwhelmed. Your mind was trying to solve emotional survival in real time while simultaneously trying not to scare the people around you away. That's different. I know back then it felt like if you could just explain yourself thoroughly enough, gently enough, honestly enough, people would finally stop misunderstanding you. You thought if you just added more context, more details, more transparency, more vulnerability, more emotional precision, then people would see your intentions and hold you properly. But here's what I know now that you didn't know then. The right people do not require endless defense presentations in order to see your humanity confirmation, and the people committed to misunderstanding you will still misunderstand you after the thousandth paragraph. You kept trying to contextualize your pain into digestibility because deep down you feared that if people truly saw how intense your inner world felt, they would leave. And sometimes they did leave. Or you pushed them away, which only reinforces the belief that you needed to explain yourself even harder the next time, or not enough, or not as much. It was so confusing. I know, but love and safety are not earned through perfect emotional articulation. You don't need to exhaust yourself proving you're safe, kind, thoughtful, or worthy of care. I know when you cleaned the washroom, left thoughtful notes, dropped off food, over explained your feelings, or tried to anticipate everyone else's emotional needs, you weren't trying to manipulate or invade in any way. You were trying to love carefully. You were trying to show care in the ways you wished people would show care toward you. And yes, sometimes trauma made your expressions overflow boundary a little. Okay? Sometimes your anxiety attached urgency to connection. Sometimes your fear of abandonment made you reach harder for reassurance or understanding and closeness. But none of that made you monstrous. It made you a human being, but dysregulated. And I need you to understand something else. Now that you couldn't fully be you something now that you couldn't fully grasp then. Not everyone that pulled away from you was cruel, and not everyone that stayed misunderstood you. Not every uncomfortable reaction was proof that you were too much. Sometimes people simply don't have the emotional capacity or communication skills, nervous system stability, or self awareness to hold what you were carrying. And truthfully, neither did you yet. That's why you felt like you were drowning while simultaneously trying to explain the mechanics of water to people standing safely on shore. You kept saying, until someone can tell me how to not feel this way, they have no grounds to tell me how to react. And I understand why you felt that. Because your pain felt unbearable and invisible at the same time. But here's the truth you learn later. People may not fully understand your pain, but they can still help guide you toward healthier ways of carrying it. Your feelings were always valid, but not every reaction born from those feelings were sustainable for your well-being. That distinction matters. And the analogy you used about someone saying, please don't move or speak, just trust me. I finally understand what you're trying to say underneath it all. You were craving emotional steadiness. You were begging people not to panic at your pain. You wanted someone to sit beside you without immediately trying to control, label, fix, abandon, diagnose, or fear you. You wanted someone to trust that beneath all that overwhelm, there was still a deeply loving and self-aware person just trying to survive. And there absolutely was. Survival is not the same thing as peace. Okay? You eventually learn that healing isn't found through convincing everyone else to understand your suffering perfectly. Healing begins when you stop abandoning yourself inside the desperate search to be understood. You eventually stop over-explaining, not because you become cold, not because you stop feeling deeply, but because you finally realize that your existence doesn't require a courtroom defense. You learn boundaries, you practice boundaries, you implement those boundaries, you learn pacing, you learn that urgency isn't always intuition, you learn that intensity isn't always connection, you learn that not everyone deserves full access to your inner world immediately. You will learn, or you do learn, that your nervous system deserves safety too. And slowly, you stop trying to prove your goodness. You just become it quietly. And you know something beautiful? The traits you thought made you crazy eventually become some of your greatest gifts once they're grounded. Your emotional depth becomes wisdom. Your sensitivity becomes discernment. Your honesty becomes powerful storytelling. I was going to say powerful. Your ability to notice small details becomes attentiveness instead of hypervigilance. Your intensity becomes passion instead of panic. Nothing was wasted. Not the grief, not the confusion, not the chaos, not the loneliness, not the lonely nights in the car talking to yourself, trying to survive your own mind. None of it. And I know you felt ashamed that your depth looked unconventional. I know that you feared people would only see instability instead of transformation. But one day, you realize something. People who have never been psychologically shattered often don't understand the kind of courage it takes to rebuild yourself consciously. You didn't become wise because life was gentle with you. You became wise because you kept choosing reflection instead of bitterness. You kept choosing softness when hardness, or after, you kept choosing softness after hard. Anyways, you kept choosing to stay alive long enough to understand yourself more deeply. That matters. And now you no longer need the entire world to validate your humanity before you allow yourself to exist peacefully. Now you know. You were never too much. You were a deeply feeling human just trying to survive. Trying to survive experiences you didn't have tools, language, nervous system regulation, or support that could carry that properly. And despite all of it, you remained loving. That's so strong. And there is nothing crazy about that. That's resilience. That's alchemy. I'm proud of you. Choose love. Keep choosing love. You came so far, baby boo.